you very much, Prof, for that introduction. And it's indeed a great privilege to be here with you at the Best Center, Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I am looking forward to this session. This session, I'm told, is roughly for about 1 hour. So I'll be spending about 20-25 minutes in talking, and then I'll stop talking and open it up to an interactive session for us all to, and then talk through what I've presented, ask questions, and then just stimulate ourselves in one way or the other. So I will be talking through what I have tagged sustainable business, or basically looking at how do we stabilize ourselves, our businesses, in what we call the new norm. So let me put it on slideshow. You've introduced me, so I'll just start by posing some questions and just getting us to think through something. So when we say the new norm, the question I want to ask is this really a new norm, or what we term as the new norm, is it outdated? And the reason why I said that is because for some time now, development experts all over the world have basically been, making noise about the fact that the world that we know has changed dramatically. And what do I mean by that? Some of the things that they've said, for instance, is that the population of the world is growing at an exponential rate. And that population, as we know it, is going to be roughly in the range of 10 billion globally, and maybe about 2.5 billion for Africa. The challenge is not in the growth of the population. The challenge is actually in the fact that if that population continues to grow by roughly about 75 million per year, they say, right? If that population begins to grow, we're told that there's scarce resources that will be available for that population to survive, right? So that has been an issue of concern. The fact that the world that we know has begun to change in a very dramatic way, with the fact that the demographics have changed, the population rate continues to grow, and there's scarce resources available for that population to survive. The other thing that we know that is the new norm, that we've been told is a new norm, is the fact that, climate change has come to stay. The seasons, weather seasons as we know it, is no longer the same as when we were young or in a couple of years ago, and this has had tremendous impact on livelihoods of farmers, and even with the flooding in Nigeria, some businesses won't be able to open, some will have their homes flooded. And so, things have changed in that regard. Also, it's the widening gap between the rich and the poor. I was reading a Harvard Gazette, which has spoken about the fact that in the 1980s, the geography of how the population dispersed between the rich and the poor wasn't as we have it today. So we didn't have clear demarcation in terms of where people were living that were tagged as being that for the rich and those for the poor. So right now, the gap between the rich and the poor is widening, and this is something that is new, and this is something that we have to tackle. This is something that we have to address, because the people who are poor are then getting poorer. A new study by the UN University shows that, 500 million people, more people will be thrown into poverty as a result of COVID-19. So the question is this new norm, is it really new or is it outdated? If we look at it and say that it's not new, that means that there's different trends that have been occurring that would make us begin to change our mindsets in terms of how we position ourselves as businesses and how we react, to changing occurrences in the world, and how we then look at how to mitigate those risks and to stabilize ourselves in what we will term as the new norm. Another question I'm going to pose again is, where's the superpower? Countries are now more divided. Nationalism is the order of the day. So countries are now saying, look, it's all about me, my economy, my world, my country. It's not about that interconnected and collaborative efforts that we used to have. I'm more concerned about how my country is going to survive and how my country is going to, my GDP is going to look very sexy. So if that is the question, then the world that we know it has begun to change a long time ago. And then now we have what we call an unseen enemy. And we say that unseen enemy has come to roost more closely than we would normally think. So it's challenged our health and well-being at an unprecedented rate. The question again is that, is this really new? You know, what has been happening before? You know, what has occurred before? And did we listen? And if we haven't listened, how do we change our mindset in such a way that we begin to look at our businesses and say, look, the world is changing dramatically. The world is flat, it's an interconnected world. What happens in one part of the world has the possibility, the high pensions of, you know, affecting me and my business. And how do I stabilize myself in this world going forward? So what next is the question we have to ask ourselves. So Ebola in West Africa, SARS in Asia, Lassa fever in Nigeria, now COVID-19. What next? And if that next thing comes, how are we going to survive it? And how are we going to mitigate the risks that are probably going to evolve? And are we listening? Are we watching the trends? So let's go to COVID-19. So COVID-19 has thrown the world in chaos. In December last year, allegedly, you know, coronavirus was detected in Wuhan city in China. And I say allegedly because we've then heard news of a doctor who had apparently made a lot of noise to authorities in China about this virus, but apparently was clamped down. And we hear that he's now late, bless his soul. But so we all got to know about coronavirus in December 2019, and it's now been tagged as a pandemic. The message from the World Health Organization is clear. It is the greatest challenge that we face in this industry, in this century. It is probably the greatest challenge that we face because this is something that affects our individual lives, our health and well-being. And the rate at which it is transmitted from human to human is something that we haven't experienced and we haven't seen before. Again, I'm going to say that we should think about all this in the context of how do we conduct ourselves, conduct our businesses in such a way that we will stabilize. We will be stabilized, knowing that the world is changing rapidly, and it might not, the changes that we know today might not be the changes that we'll face tomorrow. Excuse me. Yeah. So what is sustainable business? And I want to challenge us a little bit. So some of us might know a little bit about sustainable business, which is basically usually said to be an enterprise that is built in a way that would have minimal impact on the society or the environment or an economy. And it's something that can be sustainable, that will sustain the future generations. But maybe we should define it as this, to businesses that can withstand what we call VUCA. VUCA means a volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous situation. So we really need to talk about it in the context of stability and growth in volatility. So we need to begin to talk about sustainable businesses that can be stabilized and can grow in volatile situations, in uncertain situations, in complex situations, and in ambiguous situations. So let me talk a little bit about VUCA. So when we talk about complexity, this is a situation that has many interconnected parts and variables. Some information is probably available. Sorry, or can be predicted, but the volume or nature of it can be overwhelming to process. So that's what we mean by complexity. When we talk about volatility, we basically talk about a challenge that is unexpected or unstable. It may be known or unknown. It may have an unknown duration, but it's often very hard to understand. The knowledge of it is often not times available. I'm very sorry. Let me just take some more water. An ambiguous situation, on the other hand, is a situation where you have relationships that are completely unclear. So no precedent exists, and you face unknown unknowns. So all this will probably remind you of the situation that we find ourselves with COVID-19. An uncertain situation is one that, you know, you don't have information. The event's basic cause of it is very much vague and the effects unknown. So which is where we find ourselves. Change is possible, but not a given. And this morning I was listening to the news and I'd heard that, yes, it's possible for us to find a cure, a new medicine to cure those who have been infected with coronavirus. Some vaccine trials are also going on in Germany and in UK. So a change is possible, but it's not a given. This is still very much in trial. So how do organizations then how do they manage this kind of environment, this kind of challenges? And there's 6 areas that we've basically seen that have emerged in the last couple of months. One is the fact that as a business, you now have to go into a mode of crisis management, or you have to begin to craft and quickly structure what kind of response do you have to then have on hand to be able to tackle this issue. We also look at your workforce. Is your workforce skilled to be able to handle these issues? Are they skilled? If they're not skilled, what do you have to do to be able to either skill them or, you know, recruit those who can help you? And how do you also, most importantly, make sure that you're protecting your workforce at this time? Your operations, how is it going to impact on your operations? Are you going to be able to operate in the same way that you used to? Let me talk about small businesses. Businesses, for instance, that are into taking events, how are they going to operate? What should they do? You know, those who need some certain types of raw material to be able to carry on doing their business, are they still going to be able to get those raw materials? Or are those raw materials considered non-essential goods and that would affect their businesses? Financial implications, what kind of financial implications are we going to have? And how do we begin to sort it out? Cash is king. Do I continue to have liquidity in my business? And if I don't, how's that going to affect me? What are the new regulatory frameworks that we're going to see emerging, the new laws that are going to guide the way that we do businesses? We have to close at 2 p.m. as opposed to 6 a.m. or any time that we want. That's going to affect us. And what do we need to do to mitigate that? And what's our strategy going to be like? And how do we position our brands going forward? So these are the things that have emerged in this area of COVID-19, the 6 key areas of focus for organizations that we basically need to then begin to look into and say, how do we manage this? Or how have we managed this in a way that will help us to stabilize going forward? And what other things do we do? So I like this study by this model by PwC that has basically put it in this way. So in the immediate term, what businesses have been forced to do is to establish a response. How do we respond? Whether you're a small business or you're a big business, how have you responded? And has the response to COVID-19 issues and challenges, has it helped you, or you're still there not knowing what else you need to do? So you need to establish a response. You need to also look at your workforce. Then in the medium term is also to then say, what kind of tactical responses am I going to have to the challenges of navigating this new normal? Do I have to do my business, quickly establish myself online? Do I have to do my business in another way? Do I have to get a logistics firm to help me do delivery? I mean, what is it that I need to do so that my cash flow is not affected? My liquidity position is not affected. The financial implications of me is not affected. And I can continue to sustain myself in a particular type of livelihood. And we've seen companies that have done that incredibly well, you know, having those tactical responses to be able to help them stabilize in the areas where, you know, they've had challenges. But more importantly is, how do we design a strategy for emerging stronger in the post-COVID-19 economy? Are things going to remain the same? Or is there really going to be, are things going to go back to the way it was? Or is there going to be a new normal? If there's going to be a new normal, that means that the number of people that come to work can be the same. The way we sit can be the same. Are some people going to work from home? And how do we begin to service our customers? If I own a restaurant, how many people are going to be allowed to come into my restaurant? You know, what's my supply chain going to be like? How's my operations going to be like? You know, those are the things that we need to begin to challenge ourselves and talk about. So I like this. This paints a picture of, you know, what we then would say is the new norm that has gone up a few notches higher. So school life is no longer the same. School children are learning at home, online. There are opportunities to explore. Those at the bottom of the pyramid do not have the same advantages that, you know, some other children have, whereby they can quickly plug and play. Their school will set up an online platform and begin to teach them. School, when they return, are they going to have smaller classes, less crowded classes? Are they going to be going to school every day? How is it going to be like? What are the opportunities for us to begin to harness in those areas? How can we serve the underserved at the bottom of the pyramid? You know, disposable menus and masked servers. Is that going to be what we're going to see? I have some menus at home whereby I can just call and order. You know, I say I want something. So I'm not going to be quick to go to a restaurant that is crowded. And sports as we know it, how are we going to do sports? Concert halls. I was watching a program on TV where they had said that, you know, when you visit some sites, those sites have now been taken, or some galleries, those galleries have now been taken online, whereby you can then visit those galleries and look at the artwork, you know, from an online platform, as opposed to you actually visiting the gallery itself. So again, our privacy as we know it is going to be changed, you know, tracking of location, the government, you know, they would want to know how to track our location as employers. We also want to know where our staff is living, track their location to know whether they are hotspots. So privacy as we know it is going to change. There are going to be changes at the airport, limited travel, right? Is travel and experience and holidays, is it going to be new? What are we going to see? What kind of innovations are going to come? Changes at the airports, flying, how the seats going to be arranged. You know, face mask obviously has now become a necessity. It is no longer a luxury or a thing used by medical experts. So when we talk about stability in the new norm, a few tips that I would just like to pose there. We've already said, we've spoken about VUCA. We need to embrace VUCA. And I started by posing a question. Is this really a new norm, or have things been changing and we've just not paid attention? We've not just structured our businesses in a way to mitigate the risk of an ever-changing world. So we need to embrace the fact that the world we live in is going to continue to be volatile. There are going to be uncertain situations. It's going to be complex. We won't be able to navigate ourselves around and figure things around as quickly as possible. It's going to be very ambiguous. You know, defining the occurrences are going to be even much more unclear. So what do we do? The first thing is that now you have to be extremely knowledgeable. Make research and knowledge your new best friends. You have to follow trends voraciously. What is happening in the rest of the world, you know? What are people saying? What are experts saying? What are people doing? How do I get tips? You know, as to how people are then, you know, surviving and stabilizing. This is for you to be able to remain ahead of the curve. You have to be extremely passionate and aggressive about remaining relevant and ahead of the curve. Do not discountenance the things that the scientists are saying, because we've had Ebola, now we have coronavirus. Things definitely are no longer normal. It hasn't been normal for a long time. This has just taken us notches higher. It's important for us to continue to remain networked. As businesses, for us to be able to stabilize, we have to remain connected in one way or the other. And the best way that I find out is to be part of a chamber of commerce, to be part of a trade association, because then you can leverage all your relationships to get things done, to understand what is happening when you're not there physically. So your network has to be very extremely strategic. And this is also to help you understand what are the stimulus packages that are out there. Where can you get access to small loans that can help you stabilize at very cheap interest rates? Where can you get grants from? And then you have to be flexible. Flexibility is the order of the day. If what you're doing right now cannot be sustained, because it cannot be adapted to the new situation, then you have to quickly look for something new, quickly begin to research into how can you do something new. And I'll tell you that people are doing that. The stories about how people are being nimble and are actually then harnessing the opportunities that are existing in this time and at this day. I heard of a lady that owns a fashion designing outfit, and how obviously for those who make dresses, everybody's been locked down, so nobody's buying dresses, nobody's going anywhere. And how she just thought to herself, oh, let me make face mask, designer face masks. And she started to make those face masks and did a video. And now, state governments and businesses are now patronizing her. So her cash flow hasn't, maybe it's been impacted a little bit, but she still, she still has a gainful livelihood. So you have to be flexible. You have to think innovatively. And technology is king. Your online platform, you must have an online platform. Your brand, your business must have an online identity. And you must find out how you can harness that online to your advantage. Continue to be visible and relevant. Sustainable business really is all about purpose. How are you making a difference to humanity? And when I spoke about that lady that has a fashion design outfit and how she became quickly very nimble in terms of changing her approach, she understood how she could serve humanity and how that her service will be much more attractive to people in these times and will be needed. So sustainable business is all about purpose. A few tips from me, and I'm quickly going to run into this, being mindful about the time. So this is some of the insights that I got, and I thought I'd share it with you. Some of the things that some researchers have come up with in terms of what is happening and what to expect. One of the things that we probably might expect is people who have started to shop online might not go back to shopping in physical stores, So you need to ask yourself that if your business can allow you to go online and you've actually gone online, how do you continue to sustain it, or how do you get into that online mode? If you can, right? If you can't, what do you need to do? Consumers are said are likely to shop closer to home and support local businesses. So instead of me going to places where, they're very far, by now I would probably have understood what my neighborhood looks like and which are the local businesses that I can sort of like patronage there, or begin to expand myself in regions in my locality that I can then be easily accessible. Promotional intensity has dipped again, maybe because of that is because of shopping patterns. People have had to stock things at home, so that penchant for promotions is no longer there. The discipline around pricing has then remained, because then people want to buy even at the price that is tagged, so that remains the same. Consumers are being conditioned to shop from targeted assortment, so really about simplifying your offers to your consumers and how they then can pick from very simplified range, as opposed to something that is complex and is, because it's online, it has to be customized. And then the thing, what we've been talking about is that, this is a time for innovations. Coming up with solutions, new solutions, and giving opportunity for people to shop at the ease and the comfort of their homes. These are insights that researchers have gotten from what has been happening around now. Again, sometimes we think that there's not going to be demand, people are not going to buy things, people are going to still continue to buy, they say. That demand might shift. It might shift in prices, it might shift in what is being sold and how and where, and so these are things that you also have to understand, and understand the fact that, consumers will buy whatever is available. So if your brand or your service is not available, they will go to the next person that can offer it. It's also not about being absolute, but understanding the relativity of that competition matters. So competition matters. Look at it in segments: pricing, media, availability, quality, and begin to plan for those things. Watch, plan for recession, right? Even if it eventually doesn't come, right now, You know, it's been said that the world, the global economy might go into recession. Nigeria might go into recession. What are you going to do? How are you going to price during recession? How are you going to make your goods, your brands, your services available? And how are you going to make sure that there's access? Keep innovating. It is very important. There are opportunities during every crisis. You know, people have very short memories, unfortunately. So your long-term trends will matter. How do you begin to re-strategize and redesign yourself for the long haul? So what kind of trends will stick? COVID cocooning means that basically right now, a lot of, well, maybe not necessarily in Africa or in Nigeria, but a lot of attention has been given to, you know, people that have underlying ailments, you know, people that are old, that are in hospitals and being taken care of them. So these researchers have said that this is just going to be very temporary, but e-commerce, everything is going to remain the same. Stocking and saving is going to be sustained after COVID. Contactless culture is, you know, social distancing is also going to remain. People are going to continue to be have that psychological fear of transmissions. We don't know who. If vaccines are being found, how widespread will that vaccine be? You know, how easily accessible would that vaccine be? The cure, if a cure is found, if a particular drug is found, how widespread is that going to be? You know, before everybody gets it and before we live outside of that psychological fear. Every protective measure that we're facing will continue to become an habit. Life that is interrupted, it might be momentarily. You see that economies are opening up. People are saying, let's have a phased approach to going back. We know that in Sweden, and they haven't really shut down. Businesses are going back to, they're still continuing about their business as normal. So that interruption might just be very momentarily. The fear factor, however, like I've said, will remain. So this slide just shows you where people get their sources of information. Something that has been researched, and it might be useful for you to know that where do people then source for information and which ones are the most trusted channels, and how can you, in one way or the other, make yourself visible on those channels in a very relevant way. So right now, I mean, we see that because obviously for this point in time, those that are closest to solving those challenges are the government. So the government updates are very, very critical and very important. News on TV is also more trusted than news on websites. So these are things that we need to then understand and understand, and might help us to strategize and plan into the future. I posed the question at some time during the presentation, and I said, what next? And how are you going to develop a mindset about, you know, what you're going to do going forward, right? Do you go back to just thinking that this new norm, as we know it, has actually just become very normal, not new, and you're not positioning yourself to trends that might take you in an unexpected manner, or for you to be able to stabilize yourself and build a truly sustainable business going forward. So let me just play this very short clip for you. Can you see my slides? I mean, can you see the video?
Industry sky. The Pentagon has released 3 short videos of what appears to be some kind of unidentified flying objects. Officials say they want to clear up any misconceptions about whether the videos are real. The videos, as you can see here, were taken by the Navy in 2004 and then also in 2015, and they've been circulating for years. The Pentagon called the objects unidentified aerial phenomena, but wouldn't speculate on what it could be. I think it's helpful to seeing the UFOs out there at this time. There's too much anxiety as it is. But anyway, thanks very much to the Pentagon.
So, a UFO. Today we have COVID-19. What might we be dealing with tomorrow? And what are your strategies to making sure that your livelihood, your life as you know it, quickly adapts to that new norm again. So this is where I'm going to stop. Any thoughts or questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Soromidayo. That was quite enlightening, and I'm sure for all of us will also believe that is. Just in case anyone wants to respond or ask questions or intervene, can you do that by indicating, can you indicate that by raising your hand? There is a feature on Zoom where you can raise your hand, and you can mute yourself. Okay, do I get the feeling that you want to talk? Okay, Mr. Joseph Ajulo, you have the floor.
Yeah, he's not doing, it's not, I couldn't see anything ACCI is doing to support members at this crucial time. You know, all of us are not manufacturers. There are a lot of members who does buying and selling, and they were critically affected by this COVID-19. And I really don't know what ACCI is doing, you know, in respect of getting members, you know, out of this logjam. Thank you.
I believe the Director General of ACCI is online. Maybe she will like to respond to that. But if you are on the ACCI platform and you've been following what's been happening, especially as far as Nigeria is concerned, you will understand that not just that we're on the committee for COVID-19, but we've just recently, through the efforts of ACCI, gotten the government agree to allow the private sector through the chambers of commerce all over Nigeria to benefit from palliatives, especially the CI COVID-19 loans. This is the first time that's been happening, and it's from ACCI. So if you don't have the information, please relate to the Secretariat. I know they've been compiling figures and names of people who have applied. If you have not applied, please take advantage of this opportunity. Please contact Secretariat. Mr. Lao, you have the floor.
Sorry, Prof, can I just add to that? And basically just talk from my own experiences in how, as a member of, as having been a company of a member of ACCI and some other trade associations, what we've been doing. And I did mention it in one of my slides, that this is the time for you to be out there because there are a lot of members of trade associations that are actually then fighting for the attention of their chambers of commerce or whichever association they belong to. So it's really now about being very proactive and picking up the phone, getting the numbers of all those that are relevant, the key stakeholders, the DGs of all of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, for instance, and then having sessions with them proactively to understand what the chamber has in store, or even to pose ideas to the chamber to say, look, there's something that I need. Can the chamber help? Because from my experience, what I have found as a corporate affairs person is that if I sit down, then nothing gets done. And all my competitors, all the other companies will then reach out to these trade associations and get help. And we have been getting help. I know that even for us as in the company that I work with, and also the small companies that are feeding into our supply chain have access to that help at the chamber. And the chamber has been of tremendous help to us at this time. So I think that service is open to all the members, including whether they're small, medium, or large enterprises. So this is the time, this is a crisis period. All hands are on deck. So we have to be very, very proactive as businesses. And that goes into what the topic of this presentation is, stabilizing in what we call the new norm. So the new norm is about putting ourselves out there to say, hey, I have this challenge. I need your help. I hope that helps you in one way or the other.
Thank you, Mrs. George. In addition to what Mrs. George has said, is the fact that the ACCI Secretariat never stopped working. They've been working remotely, and you can always reach the Director General, and if not, you can also reach the President. One thing also that is very pertinent is all through this period of COVID-19, our crisis management team at ACCI, we have been able to get a few things done with government. As Mrs. George rightly said, also initiated to ensure that the organized private sector will be allowed to move for the essential services. So those who are involved in essential services, we got a waiver for them. All this was done through the ACCI. And we also make sure that the palliatives being distributed by government in terms of the CBN loan. He actually did write a letter to the president to complain that our members are not benefiting from these so-called loans. And within 24 hours, the presidency initiated action. We had a meeting with the Central Bank of Nigeria, where they have now for the first time agreed that the chambers of commerce and the organized private sector can guarantee their members. So where you don't have the necessary collaterals and all that, make your applications through the chamber, but you have to follow some of the guidelines. There's a new guideline that came out after that. So please, if you don't have it, please find out from the Secretariat. I know unless you are not on the mailing list of the Secretariat, it's very, very important. Everybody who is on the mailing list of the Secretariat, they have been discussing this, and I am aware that they are compiling the names of those people who have applied. So if you have not applied, please do. And somebody asked about having applied for the national loan palliative, but up till now, I have not received any news. I'm not sure what you must have done, because some people who have applied immediately get response within 24 hours to the email address. My company applied, and within 20, I was shocked at how effective they were. They sent me a response within 24 hours to my email. So please find out also from the Secretariat what you did wrong or what you are supposed to do. I'm sure they must have responded if you have done everything right. I'm trying to see if there's any other person who wants to speak. Mr. Alao, you have the floor. Mr. Alao.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. And also, I would like to thank the presenter, which is Mrs. George. I actually joined the meeting late, and I was really happy and very interesting, a wonderful presentation. And I was really key into this very wonderful workshop, because during this the COVID-19 lockdown, really I've just been thinking, because I'm a president of a cooperative, and we're actually thinking of how we can come up with various ideas, most especially during the lockdown, and how we can come up with. I've actually written about two business plans.
Mrs. Josh, I think that question is for you. Would you like to do and take it?
Okay, thank you very much so who, have you shared your business plan? Have you shared your business plan?
No, not really. I've
with
not.
any
I've just.
institution? Okay.
No, I have not. I have not.
Okay. So the first thing, look, I can't overemphasize the help that the Chambers of Commerce has given at this time. We're all working remotely, we're all at home. Sometimes the news that we hear and what we read is of no relevance to us. What I would suggest that you do is that you then find out and share your business plan or talk through it with the DG of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce. And they have said that there are palliatives, you know, that their members can have access to the stimulus package by the government. If it's a viable business plan, the question that you need to then start to ask yourself is, how do you then, because it's an issue of information, how do you then access, you know, the loans and the grants that you need to get this business plan up and going? The time to do it is now. It's not when everything begins to stabilize. In one of my slides, I spoke about the fact that, you know, all the protective measures that we're seeing, after a while, will stop, right? So what we now say is a new normal. Do you understand? Will stop because countries and governments will begin to see, look, we don't need to do anything extra. People have adapted. Things are going on as normal. This is the time where you have all those incentives at your beck and call. So I would suggest that you have a sit down with your Chamber of Commerce. You're a member. We are members. We also have small businesses that we're now encouraging to be members of a Chamber of Commerce so that they can have access to all these grants and these loans and that. You have to oil your network strategically, understand what is going on and where you then have to build those networks. And for you, I don't know whether you're a small or medium or large size company, your Chamber of Commerce and your trade associations now are the best bet. They're the ones working with the government and they're the ones who know where the action, as it were, is.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Just a quick one, please. I don't know, how can I contact the Chamber of Commerce? You know, is it that I need to go to their website? I need to do you have anything I can just, you can help me with? Thank you very much.
Okay. Abdul Latif, the Chamber of Commerce, we have it headed by Okay Udukwe, who is in charge of business development and helps members with their business plans. Even if you don't have one, they also help you to put one together. It's just a new innovation at the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is on the way to the airport. On the way to the airport by the airport, by the ShopRite along the airport. Right now, you can also check their website since they're working remotely due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Their website address is www.accinigeria.com. You'll get some information there. Thank you very much. I see Anthony has been raising his hand. Anthony, you have the floor.
Okay, good morning.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, this is Samuel from System. And
okay.
Yes, just wanted to ask a question to the presenter, Mrs. George. Wonderful presentation, by the way. The whole COVID-19 has made us to wake up to some realities that we just have to adjust to. But then in terms of strategy and businesses, how would you advise that should, because a lot of strategy is being put up now for companies to adjust to the post-COVID period. How would you advise? Should we take this slow or should we just run ahead and implement based on, would I use the words, the assumptions or the new evolving realities? That's number one. Number two, in terms of management, what skills do you think management, company management should have in this kind of period? What key skill do you think that management should have? Because if new strategy would require, because some companies have a business model that is designed around current realities. And so if we're writing new strategies, what skills do you think will be relevant on the management level?
Okay, what I would say is that if you have a strategy, so if you look at, there was a model by PwC that I said that I put up. So there was a short-term, right, approach, there was a medium-term approach, and there was a long-term approach. In the short-term approach, what you need to do is to come up with tactical, ideas that you can implement. So what do I need to do right now? So you first of all need to assess where your business is and what is affecting your business right now, and what do you need to do right now to be able to survive. Then, having looked at that, I also gave a bit of insights as to, I don't know what kind of business that you have. I gave an insight into how consumers are thinking, what we're experiencing right now, what might stay and what might not stay, right? So you then need to design, you understand? You need to do some research and assessment in line with the kind of business that you do. So if your business is going to be affected, you would know, for instance, is your business something that is based on high contacts? So the people have to be there. Do you understand? If people have to be there, then you begin to look at it critically. This vaccine that is being tested or is on trial right now, how widely accessible is it going to be? If it's not going to be widely accessible, and I don't think it will be in a short period of time, that means that you have to then begin to re-strategize into a contactless kind of business post-COVID. So those are the kind of thinking that you then need to do to be able to adjust in terms of your strategy. So you look at a short-term, immediate now approach. What do I need to do today? A medium-term tactical approach. Do you understand? How do I then react with a few ideas? And then long-term. So this is about research, understanding the trends, what might happen, looking at your business, identifying what are the areas that your business might most likely be. But then I then also told you about the fact that don't sit on your oars thinking that, oh, this coronavirus is come, it will go, nothing new will come. You always have to be abreast and ahead of the curve. So that also tells you what kind of leadership that you need to have, what kind of skills. People who can manage crisis, people who can survive crisis, people who are technologically driven and inclined, and people who can bring innovative solutions to you. So those who have ideas, and ideas really come by research, understanding your environment, building the scenarios, understanding what your customers or your clients want, and then coming up with a design to solutions that would affect them. So these are the things that people are doing. These are the things that companies are doing, whether they're small companies, medium companies, large companies. These are the things that they're doing. You need to get online. You need to get onto Google. You need to begin to research. You need to get involved in chambers of commerce and see how you can network, virtually, and understand what is going on. Does that help?
Thank you very much. Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. George. Chris, Mr. Chris asked a question, and his question is that how much is ACCI doing to change the mindset of SMEs operators to first think quality and innovation ahead of profit? This, he said, is important to help both old and incoming people understand the importance of engaging one's time and effort in quality products and services. I don't know if Mrs. Joyce would like to talk about quality in terms of innovation in terms of COVID-19. But before she takes the podium, I would like to emphasize that this is a time when many businesses will fail and when new businesses will be born. And those who think and innovate will be the owners of tomorrow. And indeed, for quality, because there is a change in mindset, people will continue to seek better products. So this is a time for people to actually make sure products are what exactly the people want, or else your business is doomed to fail. Mrs. George, do you have anything to say to that, to add?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I mean, quality and innovation. So I'll take your questions in two ways. The one that you asked directly, and you know, and also to just give an idea of the general perceptions about quality and innovation. Obviously, I think this kind of platform is what the Chamber of Commerce is then providing for its members, and I'm sure there are other people that are not their members here, to be able to then get them thinking, stimulating their thinking and their mindset to begin to challenge themselves and think innovatively, right? So when you're on platforms like this, you then get ideas that you probably haven't gotten, probably because you're looking at your situation as is and not expanding your horizons. So this is one of the things that I know they're doing. Now, when you talk about quality and innovation as you know, two concepts and things that you really then have to embrace, quality really cannot be compromised in whatever way. The challenge with quality is if you have 500 billion people who are going to become poorer and affordability is going to be king, then the question is then how do you maintain quality when you're being challenged by, you know, selling at a price that is not you know, your normal price or your optimal price, you know? So that's the challenge that you have to personally crack, knowing your business in and out, knowing the kind of raw materials or the kind of input into your processes that you then have to bring about, or alternatives that you have to find. Again, I will bring the word research, knowledge, network, understanding what is out there that is not, that you can't find just by sitting down. So this is how you crack that. Innovation is king. Innovation has been king for some time now. If we don't innovate as businesses, we die. Somebody else will come up with something new, right? Whilst people are still thinking about what am I going to do in this COVID era, post-COVID has started to come, you understand? And people have made money in the COVID era by one way or the other, either by quickly making hand sanitizers, you know, starting makeshift hand sanitizers or something like that. So innovation is king. And again, the only way for you to innovate is through knowledge, research, network. And so I hope that also adds to what Prof has said.
Thank you, Mrs. George. Is there any other question? Any other comment? Okay, let me invite Tinuke Temitokwe for the roundup, the Director Best Center. Oh, I can see DG of Abuja Chambers is on. Victoria, we've been expecting you to talk to us. Are you on? Okay, maybe she's gone. Is Tinuke there?
Okay. We appreciate your efforts and for sharing a bit to us from your wealth of experience. Really appreciate you. And to all participants, we want to say a very thank you. The Best Center, the Business Entrepreneurship Skills and Technology Center of ACCI, is saddled with the responsibility of training and capacity development. And we've been running this online training for the past 1 month, ensuring that we have at least 2 virtual classes twice a week. So we thank Mrs. George, we thank all participants. And if you have further question or contribution, you can follow